Today, we will confront a truth that most dare not face. Your avoidance of discipline is the very reason you feel powerless, restless, and unfulfilled. You want freedom, but without discipline, freedom rots into chaos. This is the disease we will cure. Men speak of discipline as if it were a set of chains forged by another's hand, as if it were a prison built by unseen wardens to confine the spirit. They confuse self-command with oppression, and in doing so, they betray the fact that they have never truly ruled over themselves. What they call freedom is often nothing more than servitude to their own impulses, a surrender to the weakest and most chaotic elements of their being. The undisciplined man wakes when the sun has long risen, eats without hunger, speaks without thought, acts without aim. His days drift into each other like identical gray stones in a lifeless riverbed. He obeys every passing desire, as if each whim were a sovereign decree, and he calls this living. But this is not life. It is slavery of the most pitiful kind, slavery to the self that is lowest, laziest, and most cowardly. True discipline does not come from the outside. It is not the voice of a ruler shouting commands from a distant throne. It is the inner general, the architect of one's own becoming, the will that refuses to bow to weakness. Self-discipline is the assertion of sovereignty over your own instincts. It is the declaration, I will not be ruled by what is unworthy in me. Those who mistake discipline for slavery reveal that they have never tasted real command, neither over themselves nor over the direction of their lives. A man who cannot command himself will always end up commanded by others, by circumstance, by temptation, by the loudest and most vulgar voices of the age. Without discipline, the will remains a dull blade, unable to cut through distraction, unable to carve a path toward anything higher. To speak of discipline as a burden is to misunderstand it entirely. Discipline is liberation in its purest form. It is the breaking of chains, not their forging. It is the refusal to let the mob of desires run riot in the streets of your mind. Every act of discipline is a declaration of independence from the tyranny of pleasure and the dictatorship of comfort. It is the single act that transforms chaos into order, potential into power. The man who cultivates discipline walks through the world like a master surveying his own estate. He knows his will is a fortress. His thoughts are sentinels. His actions are deliberate strokes upon the canvas of his life. He does not wait to be moved by the winds of emotion. He moves himself, as the sun moves across the sky, steadily, without hesitation, ungoverned by anything but its own nature. Consider the artist who labors over a masterpiece. Every brushstroke demands patience, every detail requires effort, and yet he does not call this slavery. Why? Because his labor is his own, chosen and embraced. So too with discipline. It is the brush in the hand of the soul, shaping a life of intention and beauty. The undisciplined dab at their existence with careless strokes, leaving behind a formless mess. The disciplined carve and refine until the image matches the vision within. There is no mastery without obedience, but the obedience must be to something higher than fleeting comfort. A man must learn to obey his own higher nature, the voice that speaks not of what is easy, but of what is necessary. This is not the voice of a tyrant, but of a liberator. It frees you from the dictatorship of your moods, from the anarchy of your appetites, from the endless cycle of chasing pleasures that leave you emptier than before. The paradox of discipline is that the more you bind yourself to the laws you have chosen, the more unshakable your freedom becomes. Freedom without self-mastery is merely license, a slow suicide disguised as joy. Freedom with self-mastery is a realm in which you are king, ruling with justice over every thought, every action, every habit. Pain is the great instructor, the stern tutor from whom no man escapes. It arrives uninvited, yet its lessons are eternal. To live is to encounter pain, yet the difference between the strong and the weak lies in how they meet it. The weak see pain as an enemy, an affliction to be avoided, a storm to be sheltered from. The strong, however, recognize it as a necessary fire, the furnace in which the raw ore of the soul is smelted into steel. Pain is not the destroyer, it is the refiner. Every act of discipline carries with it an element of discomfort. To rise before dawn when the body pleads for more sleep, to deny the mouth what it craves, to remain focused when the mind seeks escape. These are small pains, but they are the building blocks of strength. Those who run from such pains imagine they preserve themselves, yet they only preserve their weakness. Avoiding discomfort is the same as avoiding growth, for growth is born from resistance, and resistance is the child of pain. The body grows stronger only when it is placed under strain. The muscle must be torn before it can be rebuilt. The lungs must be pushed to gasp before they can expand. The same is true of the spirit. A man's will must be tested against hardship, his resolve bent and hammered until it can no longer be broken. Without this process, the will remains soft, collapsing at the first sign of resistance. Those who fear pain fear their own becoming, for becoming demands the surrender of the old, comfortable self. There is a profound deceit in the way modern man treats pain. He seeks to numb it, medicate it, distract himself from it. In doing so, he interrupts the very process that would have made him stronger. He treats every ache as a sickness, rather than a signal that he is being transformed. Just as the blacksmith welcomes the sparks and heat of his forge, so too should man welcome the sting of effort, the ache of sacrifice, the pressure of responsibility. These are not signs of ruin. They are the proof that he is being remade into something greater. In every myth worth telling, the hero is called to face trials. The road is steep, the night is long, and the obstacles are merciless. Without these trials, there is no hero, only a wanderer. It is the hardships that carve the hero's name into the stone of eternity. Likewise in life, it is the pains endured and overcome that grant a man the right to call himself strong. The one who refuses the challenge remains forever ordinary, never discovering what strength might have been his had he endured the furnace. Pain does not merely strengthen, it reveals. It strips away illusions, exposing the truth of what you are. When comfort surrounds you, you may believe yourself disciplined, resilient, unshakable. It is only when pain arrives that your real nature is made visible. Many men collapse under the weight of their first true suffering, discovering too late that they had built no foundation within themselves. Others rise from that same suffering with a clearer vision, a hardened will, and the unshakable knowledge that they can endure again. The undisciplined treat pain as an insult. The disciplined treat it as an invitation. Pain calls you to a higher form of existence, to a self that is not yet realized, but waits beyond the trial. Each moment of pain endured with dignity is a step toward that self. The wounds of such moments do not weaken you. They etch into your being the marks of one who has faced life without retreat. The scars that remain are not blemishes, but signatures of the battles you have survived and the strength you have claimed. To reject pain is to reject the very process of transformation. A sword cannot be sharpened without friction, and a man cannot be strengthened without hardship. The ancient warriors understood this, embracing the rigors of training, the cold of the morning air, the hunger in their bellies, knowing that each moment of discomfort was a stone sharpening the edge of their will. Today, men flee from such conditions, choosing comfort over courage, ease over endurance, and thus they wonder why their lives feel small, fragile, and empty. In truth, pain is the most honest companion you will ever have. It does not flatter, it does not deceive, it does not indulge your vanity. It comes to you with one purpose: to make you stronger than you were before. It is the forge where discipline becomes unbreakable, where the fleeting desires of the moment are burned away, leaving only the essence of your will. It demands nothing less than your full attention, for only in facing it directly can you claim the treasures it guards. The abyss does not announce itself with thunder or fire. It does not appear suddenly before your feet like a cliff's edge, demanding your attention. No, it is a slow descent, a quiet sinking into a darkness so subtle that you may not even know you have fallen. Weakness is not always a violent collapse. More often, it is a gentle decay. It creeps into the soul like a fog, blurring the outlines of your purpose, muffling the call of your higher self, until you no longer remember the shape of your own strength. When discipline is abandoned, the abyss begins its work. At first, it feels like relief. You tell yourself you deserve a rest, a moment of indulgence, a day without effort. But the day becomes a week, the week a month, and soon you no longer know what it feels like to be sharp, to be decisive, to be alive in the way only struggle can make you. Comfort takes the throne in your life, and like all tyrants, it demands obedience in exchange for its false promises of peace. In the abyss of weakness, you lose not only your power, but also your will to reclaim it. The longer you remain there, the more foreign the idea of effort becomes. The very thought of discipline begins to feel unbearable, almost unnatural. You find yourself making excuses before you have even been challenged, defending your inaction as though it were a virtue. You tell yourself that you are content, that you have chosen this ease for yourself, but deep down, you know it has chosen you. Weakness feeds on avoidance. Every time you turn away from a challenge, you make it easier to turn away from the next. Each surrender builds upon the last until surrender becomes your only instinct. Soon, you are no longer avoiding pain for the sake of comfort. You are avoiding life itself. For life is made of resistance, and to avoid it is to exist in a shadow of what could have been. The most insidious part of the abyss is its stillness. There is no roar, no chaos, only a dull quiet. It is the silence of a spirit that no longer strives, no longer fights, no longer dreams beyond the reach of its own comforts. Many mistake this stillness for peace, but peace without power is not peace. It is resignation. It is the acceptance of a cage so long as the bars are padded. A man in the abyss grows accustomed to mediocrity as if it were the natural state of existence. He ceases to notice the strength in others because it reminds him of what he has lost. Instead, he surrounds himself with those who also dwell in the dark, and together they speak of how effort is overrated, how ambition is dangerous, how striving is for fools. This is the chorus of the abyss, a lullaby that keeps its captives asleep. And yet, the abyss is not an external place. It is a state of the soul. It is a decision made again and again to remain small. It is the slow starvation of the will, the draining away of vitality, until nothing remains but the shell of a man who once aspired to greatness. No force of nature keeps him there. No chains bind his limbs. Only the invisible grip of his own unwillingness holds him fast. This is why the undisciplined man is more to be pitied than the one who suffers. The man in pain still has the chance to rise. The man in the abyss has forgotten that rising is possible. He no longer measures himself against what he could be, but against what he already is. And since he demands nothing of himself, he finds no reason to change. The abyss teaches him to be content with the smallest version of himself, and he begins to mistake this shrunken self for the whole of his identity. It is here, in this quiet darkness, that dreams die without ever being tested. Ideas remain unborn, potential remains untapped, and the promise of what a man could have been is buried without a fight. The abyss takes no pride in its victories because it does not need to. It wins by convincing you there was never a battle to fight at all. It is the slow suffocation of the spirit, and it happens not with a shout, but with a whisper that says, "Rest a little longer, you have done enough." You are born not as a finished being, but as a block of raw material, unshaped and unrefined. Within you lies both the sculptor and the stone, the hand that shapes and the form that waits to be revealed. Most men never recognize this truth. They drift through life as uncarved marble, untouched by deliberate effort, bearing no mark of intentional creation. They are content to remain as they were given, thinking that existence alone is enough. But the disciplined man knows otherwise. He understands that the raw form is not the final form, and that his life is his one chance to carve himself into something worthy of enduring. To become the sculptor is to take responsibility for your own shape, to refuse to leave your becoming in the hands of chance or circumstance. The world will always try to shape you according to its needs, to carve away your uniqueness and replace it with conformity. If you are not your own sculptor, you will be shaped by others, often into something small, convenient, and forgettable. The chisel of discipline is the only tool that ensures the form you take is the one you have chosen. Each act of discipline is a strike of the chisel, waking before the sun, resisting the call of indulgence, confronting fears, pursuing excellence when mediocrity is easier. These are the blows that shape you. They are not gentle. The sculptor's work is not tender. To reveal what is hidden inside the stone, one must strike again and again, removing what is unnecessary, unworthy, and untrue. These strikes hurt, they strip away comfort, they demand patience, they expose the imperfections you would rather hide. Yet without them, you remain formless, a mere suggestion of what you could be. The stone resists. It does not yield easily to the sculptor's will. In the same way, your habits, your fears, your laziness resist the chisel of discipline. Every strike feels unnatural at first, as if you are fighting against your own nature. But this is the deception of the unshaped self. It convinces you that the marble is the whole truth of who you are, when in fact it is only the beginning. The true form, the one worthy of admiration, lies hidden within, waiting for the courage and persistence to bring it forth. The process is slow. The sculptor does not expect to reveal the statue in a single day, and neither should you expect to forge the highest version of yourself through a single act of effort. Day after day, you must return to the work. You must accept that the masterpiece is only visible after countless blows, and that the work is never entirely finished. To live with discipline is to live as an artist of the self, always refining, always improving, always removing what no longer serves the vision. There will be moments when you wish to stop, when the labor feels endless and the progress invisible. In these moments, the temptation to abandon the work is strongest. But the sculptor knows that each strike, no matter how small, brings him closer to the form he seeks. Discipline is not about sudden transformation, but about the quiet accumulation of deliberate acts. One by one, they carve away the excess until the essence remains. To be both sculptor and stone is to live in constant creation. It is to embrace the paradox that you are at once the creator and the creation, the hand that guides and the form that is guided. You strike yourself not out of cruelty, but out of devotion to the vision you hold within. You endure the pain of each blow, because you understand that without them, the figure inside will remain trapped forever, unseen and unfulfilled. The unsculpted life is the tragedy of potential wasted. The marble may be pure, the potential limitless, yet without the discipline to shape it, it will stand untouched until it crumbles under the slow erosion of time. But the shaped life, the life that has endured the chisel, stands as a monument, not to perfection, but to the courage of one who chose to create himself, rather than wait to be created by others. Discipline is not the enemy, nor is it the cold chain that robs you of life. It is the force that awakens life within you. Without it, you drift into the quiet death of weakness, mistaking comfort for freedom while your will withers away. With it, you walk willingly into the fires of pain, knowing they are the forge of your strength. You rise above the abyss, refusing the slow decay that claims those who abandon their own becoming. You take up the chisel, becoming both sculptor and stone, striking away all that is unworthy until the figure within stands revealed. In the end, there is no greater act of freedom than to rule yourself completely, and no greater act of creation than to forge your own soul with unyielding hands.